Hi, everybody. My name is Zeb Wellborn. I'm the president of the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce, and today I am with Chris Romer. Chris, would you mind sharing which chamber you're with and how long you've been at your chamber?
Yeah, thanks, Zeb. It's good to be here. I am the president and CEO of Vail Valley Partnership, located in Edwards, Colorado, and we're a countywide regional chamber representing Eagle County, right in the heart of Colorado in the mountains.
Awesome.
I've been at the organization for 14 and a half years. So I'll be celebrating 15 years next June.
Very cool. Very cool. And congratulations on that. So my question for you is, and I'm trying to interview chamber CEOs about their top ideas for mission-driven, which means non-community event, non-dues revenue programs. And I know you have a lot of those. So that's my question for you. What type of programs do you have in place where they're mission-driven initiatives?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that I think this is the fundamental question for every chamber of commerce. How do you figure out that mission-driven work that increases your value proposition and increases your public awareness in the community, which drives member retention and engagement and all kinds of benefits. So I love this question. I love this topic. Very passionate about it and love to watch what other people are doing too in this realm. So that said, that little commentary soapbox aside, I think when we're talking about the Chamber of Commerce industry in totality, without getting into specific niches of what your chamber does, a metro chamber versus a resort chamber, rural versus suburban, et cetera. I think the number one thing that chambers can and probably should focus on with regards to non-dues mission-driven revenue is probably workforce development. I think there are workforce programs that run the gamut, but every chamber can do it, from 100 members to 1,200 members, any geography, any staff level, workforce development. That might include certificate programs, that might include training programs, that might include certification programs, like offering a project management for construction or a certified meeting planner certificate. Some of the things that we're doing and looking at: certified hospitality and tourism management professional. This is something in our community where 50% of the jobs are tourism based. How do we upskill and reskill and uptrain? I think something we've started this year and are going to be expanding a lot next year is a Supervisor Series. So the Supervisor Series is basically, we've gathered input from our current leadership courses, and we've talked to our businesses through workforce studies and member surveys. And there's a lot of momentum towards hard skills, supervisory hard skills. It's industry agnostic. Things like, how do you establish a culture and set expectations? How do you hire and interview? How do you provide feedback and coaching, rewards for your employees? What are the different types of communication styles? How do people address conflict? How do you be a boss versus being a leader? What's the difference between those two things? Time management, personal balance, work-life balance. So we're exploring a lot of those. We've, and it's not all about us. It's just some of the things that resonate in our community. I think that I share those examples because I think a lot of them are universal. We have an apprenticeship program. We're involved in talent pipeline work with our school district. And to show a proof point for you specifically with regards to non-dues revenue, in partnership with our school district, we just landed $1 million grant to do some of this talent pipeline work and internships, and how do we build that future talent pipeline in our community. And we're a community of 50,000 people, so this can be done in smaller communities. And that's a huge non-due revenue generator for us. It's a 3-year grant for $1 million. So you do the math, it's still a significant amount of money on an annual basis. The nice thing about some of these certification courses and things I talked about, Zeb, is that those also, we've received some grant funding from our state workforce center. We've gotten some sponsorship from a business community, and then we charge an admission fee to partake in the program. And so there's revenue coming in from multiple potential revenue streams, and it's very mission driven around what our members need, what is the number one issue for us and many others is the workforce angle. So really looking at the mission of workforce retention, workforce development, workforce attraction, those types of skills, and being the clearinghouse organization that puts those on and hires professionals to come in and teach, partnering with our community college and some of these examples. I mean, it's very mission centric, and it's something that we're looking to expand tremendously over the next few years.
No, and that's awesome. Can I talk to you a little bit about your $1 million grant that you got with the school district?
Yeah, please.
So walk me through how that came to fruition. So what was the process that you were able to secure that or start down that path to get that type of funding?
Yeah, so we've been working for a number of years with our school district on job shadowing, on being a conduit for internships, where they handle all the student component, we handle all the business recruiting and business standpoint there. So this relationship and this partnership expanded into youth apprenticeships, and that relationship deepened. We said we need to do more work earlier in the pipeline development aspect. And so we worked with our school district and with a local nonprofit that does a lot of youth work. And it's a grant program called Sync Up Colorado. So it's a statewide program. There were somewhere around 120, I think, applicants. They narrowed it down to 27, and I think they selected maybe 7 or 8. And so we were fortunate to be one of them. I think in large part because of the foundation that had already been built, and the fact that we can implement this grant funding right away and make a significant difference. We weren't starting from scratch, but the grant program really allows us to ramp it up and have a full-time staff member dedicated to this talent pipeline workforce work, and a competitive process, and fortunate to work with other entities that helped with the process and the grant writing and the interview process and the rest of the case.
So let me ask you, and so then how do you execute on that? So you mentioned you have a full-time staff person that kind of handles that. What other ways how are you executing on that program that you put together?
Yeah, it's really an expansion and an expansion of what we already have done with the internships and job shadowing and apprentices. So it's a natural evolution of our talent pipeline work. So we actually brought on a full-time basis someone who's a former teacher who was working with us on a contract basis prior, and she will own this work and this relationship with the school district. And again, expanding our work on the business community side and the business engagement side, and leaning on the school district to help lead the student side. So we're not expanding necessarily our focus of what we do. We're leveraging what our partners can do, and we're expanding what is in our sweet spot which is those business relationships. So in terms of execution, it's more kids in the pipeline. It's a more concerted effort to get into classrooms in earlier years, to build that talent pipeline, build that awareness of work programs that exist in our community, et cetera. So we're pretty excited about that.
Awesome. And then so I'm pursuing some similar things, but I kind of want to know the timeline of events, because we've just started working with our school district, preparing programming for our school district, exactly the type of stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But we're at the very beginning stages of that. So walk me through like kind of the timeline of when you kind of initiated programs that were helping out with the school district to the point where you're getting funding to secure this. Because right now we're in like, I guess, either the pre-funding stage or setting that foundation and then transferring it over to actually like getting funding for it and going in the direction that you've gone is something that's totally different or could seem far away for a lot of people. So can you walk us through that timeline a little bit?
Yeah, in our case, it was about a 3-year time frame. So it was about 3 years ago, we really started to lean in, if you will, on the developing the internship programs and building out the apprenticeship program, starting some job shadowing work. And over the course, so that's how we started, is saying we need to start a talent development. When we talk about workforce development, I kind of put it in 2 buckets. One is the talent development. That's the grow your own workforce. Those are the relationships with the schools and the school system. The other is workforce attraction and retention of people who are already in the workforce. So for the sake of this discussion, I'm really talking about the talent pipeline work and the growing your own workforce. And so we brought together industry leaders, a lot of our board members and many others in key industry sectors, and said, would you be willing to be a part of this, right? Because we're not going to start a program without your buy-in and engagement from the very beginning. Almost universally, yes, right? Like, yes, we want to do it. Yes, we're willing to do it. We leverage some key industry ambassadors who we know have good relationships and strong reputations. And we said, hey, Zeb's doing it. Hey, Gary's doing it. Hey, Julie's doing it. And people are like, oh, if Julie's doing it, I want to do it because I want my business to be like Julie's business, right? So we leveraged that ambassador group. And now we have, we've gotten to the point that we're like, we can really ramp this up if we have more funding available. That's when we started to pursue the grant funding. So these programs have driven revenue because we charge the businesses for participation, et cetera. So it's not that, and we've gotten some small funding and sponsorships for these, but we said we can really ramp this up. And so we established a 501c6 foundation, or are in process of establishing that 501c6. It's sitting at the IRS waiting for approval. And that we think is going to open up a lot more opportunity for us. And so there's a little bit of peer pressure. There's a little bit of, active recruiting and soliciting feedback and engagement from the business community. Really looking at what the needs were of the students and the businesses, because it needs to be both. It can't just be, hey, this is good for the kids, because there's some people who are going to inherently care about that. But in this environment, people are much more concerned about their business. How do we're short-staffed, we're insanely busy. There's a lot going on. There's a ton of uncertainty. Don't ask me to do things for the public good. It needs to also make sense for my business. So when we talk about these workforce programs and why I think it's such a opportunity for Chambers, is that it bridges that gap. It's good for the business and it's good for the community. And that makes businesses feel good because they're solving not only their business problems, but they're also addressing a community problem. And that's good for their brands and it's good for everything in the community. So it's not everyone is immediately excited for it, but most people are, especially when they hear the others that are in there, because we really were able to target some of our leading institutions and organizations and make them our ambassadors and say, we know in our case, and I'll use a couple of real names. If Kristen in the hospitality industry says, do this, a lot of people are like, yeah, we're going to do that. And if Gary in construction and Will in healthcare and Mike in retail, if these people say, I think you guys should explore this, it's going to get us in the door and businesses want to be like them. So there's that aspirational brand positioning that goes along with it. And it'll drive significant revenue.
No, and that's super helpful. So that was kind of geared into the next question I was going to ask you was how do you facilitate those discussions, or how do you get people on board or bought into this program? Are they one-on-one conversations? Are you talking to a big group? How does that look like for you?
So yes, and we do quite a bit of the one-on-one recruiting, and a lot of leveraging our current participants of, hey, who else should know about this? Who else do you think should be a part of it? And it's pretty amazing that people don't view this as a zero-sum game. My competitor, if I'm in the mechanical HVAC business, oh, you know what? The other HVAC company in town should do this too. Banks recommend other banks, construction companies recommend other construction companies. It's pretty interesting and maybe a little bit of a surprise. So we do some one-on-one, we do the warm introduction, but every year we host a big reception, spotlight the kids, spotlight the businesses, invite as many businesses as we can think of, everyone on our prospect list. And we invite them and we encourage them to attend. So we're doing both. I don't know that there's a good one size fits all to this. I think it's a yes and. Yes, you need to find your industry leaders. Yes, you need to ask them for who else we should talk to. Yes, you need to do some traditional cold calling of people you think would be interested. And yes, you need to have some public, we did a signing day for our apprentices as an example. And we've just like college football or college basketball, on signing day, the kids come in and they put their hat on and they celebrate going to whatever school. We do that, and except they're signing on to work at a business. So we do some PR around it, and a big public, once a year, big public session, and then a lot of the one-on-one and the referral business.
So then one other thing that I might share with you is, so that seems like a lot of work, right? So you're doing grant funding, you're executing with these students, you're executing with these businesses, and you're getting them all to collaborate and buy into this process. Can you speak a little bit to the workload and how you're managing that? Because that 3-year time frame from going from where we say that we just started till now, seems like a lot. So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it is a lot. And, our board and me as the executive, when we built our strategic plan now 5 years ago, we earmarked this mission type work as a strategic priority. So I got the board to buy in to the strategic initiative of we're going to do this type of mission work, and specifically around workforce. And we dedicated a staff person to it. We dedicated a staff person to it before we even leaned in. And we just restructured our organization, paid for it out of what I guess you would call our general fund, because there was no revenue coming in at the time for it. But we were optimistic and bullish. And, it's a lot of it is relationship capital, cashing in your relationship capital.
Yeah.
For a program that you believe in, for the types of things that businesses need. We solicited some of our investor members to increase their membership. We solicited a little funding from our county and towns to support this effort from an economic development perspective. So we had some revenue coming in before the programs themselves were sustaining. Or grant funding was available to really expand them. And so we made that commitment. And once we launched the program, there started to be some revenue coming in. And now it's absolutely cash flowing at 6 figures a year.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So good on you for taking the vision and running with it and executing on it. That sounds awesome.
Here's the other thing I would share. I mean, I think that when we talk about workforce, and I think economic development work is similar. I think there's opportunities for chambers in economic development work, whatever you call mission driven in your community, solving community problems. You identify that in your community, again, metro or resort or rural or suburban, big chamber, small chamber, identify the mission work of the things that are most important to your community and most important to your business and your membership. And don't be afraid to fail fast. If something isn't working, it's okay. Shift your tactics and shift your game. You want to be careful not to do that all the time, because you don't want to lose that relationship capital and say, oh, these guys, they have a million ideas and they never see anything through. But if you put the right planning and forethought to it, and it is mission driven, and your members are telling you it's what they need, your community is telling you what they need, the chances of failing are much less, because you're basing this on data and information. You're not saying, it's not the chamber team in the office or at a board retreat saying, ooh, we think here's what might be a good idea. It's starting with that, really, really listening to your members through focus groups and surveys and outreach and everything else. So if you do that, the chances of needing to fail fast are pretty slim. You'll adapt and adjust your tactics, but I think most chambers could do this type of economic development or workforce work pretty quickly and scale it up in a relatively quick time frame. Again, 3 years in the scope of what we're talking about, I would say is relatively quick. But we were getting revenue in year one to support the effort. So it's year 2 or 3 where it really, in year 3 in our case, where it really went boom. But it was growing and then it boom,
Yep. No, that's a great story to tell. And then I know you also shared, this was just one aspect of the things that you've got going in the fire, I guess you'd say. Can you just speak a little bit about some, not going into details, but just speak a little bit about the funding sources, like how you're securing funding for these mission-driven initiatives?
Yeah.
You already talked about the school district. What about those other areas? You mentioned the state as one example.
Yeah. So we have a lot, and I'm going to laundry list some of these at risk of not just pontificating too long. So some of the work we do, and some of the funding angles we've had around this workforce work we were just talking about, state grant, local grants, local workforce center grants, Walton Family Foundation grants, and the program we charge the participants to take place in some of our programs. So there's a fee for services. Admissions for the certification courses cost a couple $100s. For some of the other training is a little bit less than that. So we're charging people for the training. We've also contracted with our county for some economic development work, and we solicit sponsorship from some of our towns and special districts, utility companies, towns, metro districts, etc. They've all signed up to do some sponsorship of these different programs because they meet the needs of their constituents. So that's some of that. We run a few other non-dues revenue programs that are self-sustaining. We run a lodging quality program. We run an air service development program. We're recruiting airlines to come in and work with us. That's a partnership with our airport. And those raise gross revenue in $100,000+, $50,000. So these programs, these non-due revenue programs that are mission driven, can be a couple tens of thousands at a time, and that adds up to pretty real funding at some level.
Absolutely. And then a question that I had, maybe my last question is, so I kind of have an understanding of how to get the government on board, so like the county or the state, is that you kind of reach out to your electeds and get them involved in that program that you're doing. When it comes to the businesses, how do you identify a business to participate in this program in a funding way? Because we'll have sponsors kind of at a small level for some of the stuff that we do, but seeking those substantial funds from businesses, I haven't encountered that yet. So I'm curious if you have any suggestions on that front.
Yeah, and so we'll be when we talk substantial funds, I'm not getting tens of thousands of dollars from businesses, right? The tens of thousands and the more come from the program revenue and the participation at a lot of people participating at much smaller dollars. But we have a handful, 30 or so businesses contributing probably $10,000 or more. And we build that into our tiered dues, and we identify them based on industry sector, based on, it's a relationship game. It's not a transactional effort. It's, the CEO, we nurture them and invite them onto our economic development advisory group or onto our board, and start to expand the awareness of the programming. We will personally invite business owners to participate in some of our leadership programs, which inevitably becomes, this is a great program. I can't believe everything you guys do. I had no idea, which is like a double-edged sword to me, because it means we're utterly failing at our marketing message. Sure. But we're doing something right to get them in the door for the one program to be able to expose them to the rest of it. So it's a little bit of elbow grease, a little bit of grassroots, and it's a little bit of identifying who are the leaders in the community and being able to build that relationship capital and say, what do you think about? Would this help? What are your biggest challenges? What are the biggest challenges in your industry? And if we did this, would you be willing to be an ambassador for it? Like, that's something that if you as a chamber executive, generically a chamber executive, listens to your key industry stakeholders, builds them, said, if we built this program, would you be the champion? Would you recruit and encourage your peers to participate in it? And if they say yes, you have something to move forward. If they say, no, that sounds like a great program, but I'm not interested in doing that, then maybe it's not a great program. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it means you probably want to take a second thought to, maybe you need to think again on how you approach it, because to me, getting the industry ambassadors is the key. That's how that is the secret sauce. Because then it's not the chamber being self-congratulatory, the chamber patting themselves on the back. We've got this great program that we think you'd like. It's very different when a key industry leader says, the chamber has this great program that I use and I know would benefit you. Completely different. It changes the entire discussion.
Yeah, no, that's excellent, excellent advice. And I think I'll end with that on a high note there. So Chris, thank you so much for doing this. I wanted to kind of share a little bit with you, I know that you know this, but the reason this came about was because I was in Academy and I had to miss 30 minutes of Chris's presentation, which was on this very topic, which was generating mission-driven, non-dues revenue. And the interesting thing was the 30 minutes that I stepped out was for a board meeting that was for a county board meeting for a grant that was giving our organization $100,000, which was approved at that meeting that I got there. So I'm taking notes, I'm learning. So that was our first step. We started in this path not that long ago either. Maybe just I want to say probably about a year ago. Is when we kind of went down this path too, and it's already paid dividends in that fashion. $100,000 for us, we're a small chamber, so that's a lot. And I'm also currently working on 4 or 5 more organizations, which look like they're going to be contributing some similar amounts to that. So kind of blowing up our chamber here, our small chamber in Chino Valley, and it's a lot to do with the information I learned from your classes and from talking to you previously. So I want to thank you and thank the Academy as well for helping facilitate that for me.
Yeah, hey, celebrate those successes. That's incredible success. It's a great story, and yeah, keep moving on. It's I love hearing that, and I think it's fantastic. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for chatting with me today.
You got it.